everyone. Welcome back to Thrive. We're talking to Dan this morning about his experience with Thrive. So, Dan, let's have you introduce yourself to everybody.
Hello, my name is Dan Mach. I am a manufacturing engineer here at Sargent Manufacturing. And this is actually in New Haven, Connecticut, for whoever wants to know.
All right. So Sargent is part of the ASSA ABLOY network of companies. And Dan, so you started at Sargent Lock, and tell us a little bit about what you were asked to do when you started. And I know that Thrive was already in place, but you were asked to pick up some projects that had just gotten started. So tell us a little bit about your history, how you got started at Sargent, and what you were tasked with, and where Thrive came into the picture, or what part of the process of Thrive implementation was going on when you started.
So when I first started, Thrive was kind of just in its, I guess, infancy phase, being brought into our facility, actually. I was tasked with kind of working with a group to get these data collection modules onto our CNC machines. Prior to that, we relied heavily on manual operator kind of production tracking. So we rely on people on using pencil and paper to keep track of part numbers that are running, quantity they're running, what days they ran it, how they ran it, scrap quantities, kind of all your basic production stats. So that was all done manually. By the time I got brought into the mix, we were starting to explore the data collection modules, how that would help with us automatically pulling all the data, part numbers, quantities, days that it ran, cycle time. So we kind of got into I guess we took a big leap in as far as manufacturing in the 21st century. So.
Sure. So tell me, did you get involved with any of the manual data tracking, or what was your experience there, or what were you hearing from your coworkers as you were getting started on this project about how that was working?
So I was kind of getting involved with it very lightly. What I do know was it was very labor intensive as far as keeping track of it, how well we're doing with it. So it was almost like a second or third job in itself for a lot of the folks that were relied upon to set the machines up, get the machines running, kind of check combine levels, and check the parts also as they ran it. So to have them keep track of part numbers, quantities, when they ran them, it was a whole nother set of tasks for them. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you're trying to run, 20, 30 different parts at a few hundred quantities at a time, it adds up.
Sure. And then what were you doing with that information? You were collecting on paper, and then I presume you were doing something with it to try to make sense of it.
Yeah, so we were getting kind of rudimentary OE calculations. I say rudimentary because it was a lot of manual collection, manual tabulating, manual calculating, and there's obviously with any kind of manual inputs, there's a lot of room for error. So we had the data. It was tough to get to, even tougher to calculate. So it was nice to use Thrive to take advantage of the system and automatically do that all up for us.
Sure. So when you said manually, you were taking paper and just were you transferring that to some sort of electronic format, or were you continually just keeping paper and then sharing information?
Right. So we would collect that all manually. We would tabulate that into Excel, run it through a couple different formulas that we had set up, and just try to calculate it from there.
Sure. And was that a daily, weekly task, or how frequently was somebody collating this information?
That was a daily task.
Okay. Somebody was spending a little bit of time every day, or maybe a lot of time. I don't know how much, but somebody was
definitely a lot of time.
A lot of time.
Yeah, I was just coming in towards the front end of Thrive, so I got a little bit of that taste, and it was pretty intensive.
As you came into the process, Thrive had already been purchased, or was starting to be implemented. So tell me about your experience, what you were asked to do in relation to the machine data collection with Thrive, and what was your experience like in terms of implementation?
So I was tasked to figure out how to get the modules working with the machines together cohesively to be able to get the data we wanted extracted. So I guess by the time we started working with Thrive, it was the idea was there. We just had to figure out how to execute it with the machines themselves, how to set the system up to get a structure in place to understand how we're gonna have the modules communicate to the system, and then how we're going to interpret the system from there. So.
Sure. So we work together to build that process, and now that you have, so what would you say your implementation experience was like, relative to working with the team, working with your team, working with installs, working with the software, collecting data? Was it as you expected, harder, easier?
I would say it was easier, a lot easier than I thought something like this would be. I would go as far as saying it was pretty seamless. Obviously working with you, working with the team, you guys have been unbelievably responsive. Any questions I have, and as you know, I have lots of questions. I've gotten answers back in a matter of minutes, if not an hour or so. So it's been incredible. My boss has kind of leaned on me a lot as far as what he wants to see coming out of Thrive, and I'm not the smartest guy in the world by any means. So I've relied heavily on you guys, and that's been huge for us. So
good, thank you. Well, I hear good things about you, and I hear some of the other departments are asking for your help too. So you must be doing a pretty good job.
And that's why I always come to you.
Very good. So tell me, so you came into Sargent, you were thrown into the mix to help implement a solution, and it sounds like it was going pretty well for you. Tell me where you're at now. So that was a while back. You started with a few machines. So tell me what you're doing in terms of machine tracking, how many you're tracking, what type of results you're getting, how much time you feel like you're spending collecting that data and reviewing it compared to what you were doing in the beginning state.
So we started off with just 3 machines. Now I would say we have all our CNC machines connected to it. We have all of our automated pinning machines connected to it. So that's another 6. So we're plus a couple other automatic CNCs we have too. So I would say we're probably around 25 machines right now. That's just in our department. I've helped a couple other profit centers get theirs going. They have one other one has about a dozen, and then one other department has 2 in them. I know they're starting to grow the number they have, but so as far as how much time this has saved as far as gathering data and gathering numbers, it's been huge. It's been immense. So what would normally take everyone, the kind of number I equated to was roughly 5 minutes per hour every single hour on the day. That's been basically nothing now. So we've pretty much gotten all that data collection as far as the operator is concerned, that end of it out of it. On the managerial side, it's been cut, over by a fraction. So it's a fraction of what it used to be.
Sure. So what are you doing with that data? Or explain to somebody now that you don't have to do the paper version and the data just shows up. What does that mean to you? What do you look at? What do you do with it?
So I can check real-time status of any machine that we have connected right now. So I could tell you which machine's running, which ones are not. I could kind of drill down a little further and say why it's not running. When the last time it ran, I can see how many parts it ran, which parts it ran. And then we have our whole manager's dashboard as far as all production data from today, how we're doing hour by hour. Plus we see what we did yesterday. And we have week to date, month to date, year to date also.
Wow.
Neat little feature we have coming out of the G2 pinning machines is we have every cylinder we have pinned. We can track it by order number, by sequence number, by cylinder type. We could drill down as far as which operator did it. It's really nice as far as A, tracking it, but B, for quality purposes.
Sure.
If there's any issue, we can always go back and communicate, talk with the operator and say, hey, what happened here? Was there a problem? Was there a problem with the machine? Do you remember these parts? It gives us a lot of hard data versus before where it was a lot of kind of guessing and assuming, right?
Sure. Sure. So you mentioned operator. Tell me about your implementation experience. So there's always a dynamic between management and operators and supervisors of different people have different perspectives on tools such as data monitoring. What was your experience at those levels of the organization?
That was interesting. That was probably one of the hardest fights I thought I would have. Obviously, you strap something on, people see you putting something on, they say, "Oh, are you going to be, watching us, over everything we do? This is Big Brother." That pops up. But I would say it's been received a lot better than I thought it would. Again, the data collection, it's nothing new. People have been logging what they've been doing for years and years and years, but now it's a matter of, hey, you don't have to do it. You don't have to record it on your own. We're not going to be leaning on you to do it every hour. You're not going to have to drop what you're doing. You just run your machine, do your job, and everything kind of tabulates by itself. So there's nothing for you to have to worry about anymore. So it's good in that sense, and I would say it's been received really well.
Good. Well, thank you for joining us today to talk about Thrive. So one last question might be, if somebody was evaluating Thrive and using it for continuous improvement tools, such as the machine data collection and goal board or other areas, what would be your advice, or based on your experience, why they should get started?
I would say it's a lot easier to implement. It's almost a necessity these days in manufacturing in 2019, is you need to be able to collect the data. And the easier it is to collect the data, the better it is to use. There's really no limitation as far as what kind of machines you want to implement it on. We have it on different machines that are, 60, 70 years old. It's there's really no excuse for it.
Sure. Well, great. Thanks for joining us today. Again, we're talking with Dan Mach from Sargent Manufacturing in Connecticut. So Dan, thank you. Appreciate your time, as always.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.